Because at that point I didn't even want to believe, I didn't even want to hear anything about God knows the plan. Don't be joking with my future like this. Which one is that God understands? And sometimes we would have panicked, cried out our eyeballs before he finally shows up. Hello everyone, it's Onyii here. You're welcome to another episode of Onyii and Ruth series. If you're new to this channel, thank you so much for coming around. You're very welcome here. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for always engaging in my content. I really appreciate that. So if you've not subscribed, please click the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so that you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. Well, Onyii, I've been thinking. Oh really? Thinking about what? Remember you told me that God answers prayers. So I have this particular story I want to narrate. I have a friend. She told me last week that she was sick and it was very severe. So I went to the hospital to visit her. When I went to the hospital, I held hands with her and I prayed with her. You know what? You know the news I got yesterday? That she died yesterday. So here is my question. How do we correlate this with the fact that God answers prayers? How do you even want me to believe that there is a God that even exists? Well, Ruth, first of all, accept my condolences. But here's the thing. Many Christians don't come to terms with the fact that 100% of Christians would sometime in life come to the point where it feels like God is irrational in his dealings. Many times when we try to think about the situations and correlate them with his promises in the scriptures, the only thing we'd get to conclude is that God does not make sense. Quite honestly, even when we go to the scriptures, like, how do you tell Job that there is a God that he's serving and the God was sitting down watching all his children die in a day? Quite honestly, the only logical explanation that Job could get at that point, if he was being completely human, is that God does not exist. Or how do you tell Stephen that he has been working for a particular God in heaven and then that same God watched him stoned to death and did nothing? Man, the only way it makes sense to him, if he's going by the carnal mind, the only way it makes sense to him is that God does not exist or that God makes no sense. I'm trying to say that 100% of Christians is not in any way peculiar to you. 100% of Christians would come to points in life where it feels like God makes no sense. Do you get it? Now, actually, I don't have answers to all these questions that trouble your mind. But actually, many of our questions, especially the whys, may have to remain unanswered for the time being till we meet God eternally. Many times as Christians, those unanswered questions shred our faith. I've noticed that the pain is not really what causes the greatest damage, but the confusion. At those points, we become confused. We are like, all the promises in the Bible, are they really true or are they just stories? And it's the confusion that shreds our faith worse. Like the depression of someone that believes in God, and God doesn't show up for him at the point where he needs him most, is worse than that of an unbeliever who never believed in any God. Look at the book of Hebrews chapter 11 verse 13. They said they believed all their life, they held on to the promise, but they couldn't even get the fulfillment in their lifetime. Do you get? So many unanswered questions may actually remain unanswered till we meet God eternally. Frankly, Onyii, I feel betrayed. How do you expect me to trust a God like this? Like, how should I? Seriously, this is not peculiar to you. Like, it is not. Many Christians come to that point when they feel like almost asking, God, is this really how you treat a child that has always loved you? Imagine Joseph going to prison after God gave him a dream of him becoming a king and people worshipping him. Man, seriously, logically looking at this thing, the only thing there is that I've been scammed. That dream was just my thoughts. But really, we know the full story now, and we know that it really wasn't a scam. Many times, when Joseph was in prison, if he was going by logic, he really would disbelieve that there was anything like God. Do you understand? So I'm trying to say that it is not peculiar to you. Of course, sometimes when those situations would have passed and we understand what God was working behind the scenes, we get to understand that, oh God, this was really what we were doing. But sometimes we don't get those answers. I'm not trying to say that every time we would have to get the answers. Sometimes it remains a mystery till we meet him eternally. I have a personal experience with this thing you're saying. When I was very young, okay, I got born again at a very young age. Now when I was in my primary 6, I wrote a particular examination, and I've always been a very bright student, so I believed, I knew I was going to pass the exam. It was a common entrance to a particular school, very high school, so, and clearly that was where my parents wanted me to go for my secondary education. Now after writing that exam, I already knew I was going to pass, so needless stressing myself, I just went to my mom one day and told her, Mom, which of these 3 schools will I attend? And she told me, wait for the results to come out. In my mind, I knew I will pass this thing now. Is there any need waiting? But do you know that when the results for these exams came out, I did not pass. Like, my name was not among the names of successful candidates. I was depressed. Like, I was depressed. Is it academics? I was very bright. Is it spiritual? Like, I was depressed because some of my classmates passed this exam and I was among the high-ranked students in class. So how can I say that I failed this exam? So that was how I stayed. I didn't know where to go again. Someone now came and told my parents about a particular school, and then my dad took me to that school, and I wrote when I went there, they had even finished their entrance examination. There was a chance for a supplementary exam, and then I took the exam. Funny enough, I came first among the supplementary candidates. So someone now told me, since all the schools I have in mind for you, you don't want to go there, and it's this one that is inside the bush that you want to attend, you have your way. Oh God, I was hurt. So I just continued. I didn't know, because at that point I didn't even want to believe, I didn't even want to hear anything about God knows the plan. Don't be joking with my future like this. Which one is that God understands? Don't be joking with me like this. I'm supposed to be in this high school, and how can I compare the school I'm supposed to be with this one that you will pass through bushes to get to? So that was how I continued in the school. But do you know that I continued in that school for my JS1, I got to my SS3, and then I wrote WAEC. It was in that same school that I got the best WAEC results that gave me the scholarship that took me throughout my undergraduate studies. Now, when I think about the fact that I was almost going to miss this school because I wanted to go to a high-placed school, which is, I mean, everybody wants to. At that point, I didn't know God was working out anything. God, honestly, I didn't know. But when I think about it now, I would never have chosen to go to the other school. In fact, I'm very grateful for the fact that I went to this school. Do you get it? So, I'm not trying to say that many times in life we would make sense of it. I'm trying to say that sometimes God allows us to see the full picture in our lifetime, maybe. But there are times when we don't make sense of it. But I just want you to know something. God is present in our lives, even when it feels like He's absent. God hears even when He appears deaf. I want you to know that God is in perfect time, even when it appears like He's very late. Could you ask Lazarus? How do you explain to Mary and Martha that God was aware of their situation and allowed their brother to die and stay in the grave for 3 days? It makes no sense logically. But God is and was very present despite all that they were passing through. And the point is that as humans, sometimes His timing is frustrating, quite honestly. And sometimes we would have panicked, cried out our eyeballs before He finally shows up. And He's still in perfect timing. Very perfect. So that's what I'm just trying to say. God is involved in every detail of your life, even though sometimes He feels absent. Well, I think this particular video is getting too long, and we'll continue in our next episode. Thank you so much for coming around. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned, we'll continue in the next episode. If you've not subscribed, please click the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so that you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for coming around. Remain blessed. Bye.